Peace. I'm Ajaya Divine, and this is Birth in the Black Community State of Emergency, the Silent War, sponsored by the Infinite Beings Association. There is a silent war happening in hospitals across the U.S. Women are dying in birth at an alarming rate, and very few people are aware of it. Less are discussing the causes, and even less are actively combating the problem. So let's take a deeper look at this silent war. The U.S. has the highest maternal mortality death rate of all the so called developed or industrialized countries, with Finland being the best, with 3 in every 100,000 live births ending in death, while the U.S. rate is 23.8 across all races. But the maternal death rate for Black women is worse than many so called undeveloped countries. For example, Cuba's rate in 2000 was 46, and by 2017, it had dropped to 36. The Black maternal death rate was 55.3 in 2020. If it's not a war, what is going on? How can the Black maternal mortality rate be more than double the US national rate? The war amps up. The Black maternal mortality rate has increased by 18 since 2018, while many so called undeveloped countries' rates are gradually decreasing. The maternal rate is sharply increasing. But why is this? How is this possible? If the US is supposed to be the most medically advanced place, how is the maternal death rate for Black women going up at such an alarming rate? If it's not a war and it's not intentional, then what is going on? But let's take a deeper look at the causes of the Black maternal mortality rate. So, according to data, Black women are dying from cardiovascular conditions, bleeding to death, infection, and embolisms. Many times, these are preventable through proper prenatal care and patients with the natural birth process. But if we take a look at this chart, cardiovascular conditions and cardiomyopathy are the same thing. That is still a cardiovascular problem. Infection, hemorrhaging, and embolisms are again things that get into the blood. So while they have broke it up in many different things, it's essentially heart and blood issues that are killing Black women in birth. The medicalization of birth. Is pregnancy and birth a medical condition? Well, the goal of the medical model is to provide a basis for understanding the determinants of disease and arriving at rational treatments and patterns of healthcare. Does that sound like it has anything to do with birth? Does a healthy mother have a disease or need a treatment plan? Is a birthing mama sick? What does the medical system have to offer a birthing mama when it is designed to treat disease? Nothing. Nothing. It's doing nothing but interfering with the natural birth process. But we have to have honest conversations about what the medicalization of birth and access to medical intervention has done to birth. Is it best for these images to be commonplace in birth? Because women are getting IVs as soon as they get to the hospital, no matter what. That is policy to make it more convenient for them to sell you their products. And a third of women are having cesarean sections, and most of them are unnecessary. Why? We're going to get into that. Medical interventions. Now, to be honest, most women don't even know when they're getting an unnecessary medical intervention in pregnancy, prenatal, or after. But one of the most common ones is induction, and the drug of choice is Pitocin. And it's usually used to induce labor, speed up labor, or jumpstart labor. And they're also injecting it after the baby is born to so-called help the uterus clamp down, contract, things that naturally does on its own. Now, this idea of stalled labor. How do they determine if labor is stalled? Okay, so if you look in the top left-hand corner, you see a bag of Pitocin. They're going to put that right in the IV. You're going to be stuck to that pole, walking around. Your movement is limited, and your fucking hand or arm or whatever is going to be sore. Oh, so now, how do we determine stalled labor? If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see a cervical exam. That usually involves a medical professional stopping their fingers up inside of a mother to check the dilation of the cervix. completely unnecessary, very painful, uncomfortable, and everyone dilates different. So it really does nothing to tell you how far progress someone's labor is. But why would they do this? Well, if I can create a problem, if I can diagnose something, your labor is stalled, things are not going according to our clock. Now I have something to treat. I can develop a treatment plan. I can give you a drug, and now it is a medical experience. They are making birth into a medical experience. But because intuitively, does it make sense to stick your fingers up somewhere that something is attempting to come out? Does it make sense? It does not make sense to do that. But it's medical. They are looking for something to treat. Now, these synthetic contractions that are created by this false fake hormone are more painful, more frequent, and all kinds of things. And they prevent the natural hormones from working correctly, which includes natural endorphins for pain relief. We have a natural pain relief system in our body, but as soon as you take these artificial hormones, it doesn't work anymore. And Cervidil and Cytotec are two other drugs that are often used to induce labor or encourage the cervix to thin out, as they say. But Cytotec is an ulcer medication not approved for use in pregnant women. What kind of sense does that make, y'all? Please. But education is very important. So let's talk about the side effects of induction, which includes abnormal clotting of the blood that results in excessive bleeding immediately after birth, amniotic fluid embolisms, which means some amniotic fluid or other substance gets in your bloodstream and causes heart failure or lung collapse. Induction can also cause hyperstimulation of the uterus or uterine rupture. But are they giving women informed consent? Are they telling them this? No. Now, what else is going to happen because of these very strong and unnatural contractions is that more women are going to be pushed towards epidurals. Now, let's look at the side effects of epidurals. Actually, no, first, look how if you look in the top right corner, look how close the needle is to the spine. Look how deep it's going into. During labor, where a woman is going through contractions, she is being made to hold still so they can put something so close to her spine without doing any nerve damage or causing any other negative side effects. Because some of the side effects include low blood pressure, spinal fluid leakage, infection, loss of bladder control, blood clots, and nerve damage. Any of these side effects to these medication drugs, are they starting to look familiar? So now woman's gotten induced, she needed an epidural. Now we're moving into a cesarean section, which is often a result of inductions and epidurals. Not to mention that a mom has to recover from major surgery along with adjusting to being a new mother, because these unnatural contractions can cause the baby to go into distress and the mother go into distress, and these medications put extra stress on the mother's heart. If it's too painful, you're going to put stress on your heart. You have an epidural, there's your body is still going through the same thing. You just can't feel it because of the nerves, but your body is still experiencing all of that. So, and this is often more dangerous for mama and baby, and is often unnecessary, and the C-section is only needed because of previous medical interventions. A C-section is major surgery. They're cutting through skin, fat, the uterus, they're pulling apart the abdominal muscles, and the bladder and intestines are moved, displaced. I saw my sister's intestines on a tray next to her. That is not going back. It's not going back to the way it's supposed to be. That is not natural. So the risks with this include infection, blood clots, and hemorrhaging. Do these side effects look familiar? These are some of the top causes of maternal death. This can also interfere with the mother and baby's bonding after. This increases postpartum depression and it causes difficulty breastfeeding and a sense of loss and disempowerment. So instead of mothers coming out of birth feeling empowered, strong, trusting their instincts, they feel low. They feel like something's been stolen from them. They didn't actually get to have the experience of birth. Perfecting the imperfect. Birth became medical in 1902. This is when they started the campaign against midwives and medically training midwives. Doctors and hospitals are new to birth because it was never seen as a medical condition. But the pharmaceutical industry understood there was money to be made because this is a business. Hospitals are a business. The bottom line is the bottom line. They are here to make money. They are drug pushers. So in 1914, doctors were practicing what they called twilight sleep for birthing mothers. This means drugging moms with morphine and often having to tie them to the bed because they often seized and responded so badly to the drugs. And then the babies were born unresponsive and had to be smacked on the butt to wake them up. That is where smacking the baby on the butt came from drugging mothers in pregnancy. And as you see in these pictures, these women are unresponsive. They're just laying there. That is not birth. That is a violation. That is a complete violation. And then doctors were practicing hysterectomies after C-sections to prevent infection and hemorrhaging, which means that C-sections cause infection and hemorrhaging. That has been a part of what they have done since they started using them to violate women, to cut their babies and snatch their babies out of them. What we are seeing now in hospitals is an attempt to perfect the imperfect. They're still drugging mothers and babies with epidurals and other drugs, but the results are less traumatic. Babies are still affected by medications and often placed in NICU that interferes with the mother and baby bonding. These practices were barbaric then, and the newer versions are just as barbaric. They have just become more efficient at it. But should this be a part of birth? Should this be a part of birth? No, no, this is the problem. But nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say it with their chest. This is the problem. They are trying to perfect some bullshit they were doing in 1930, 1914s, 1930s, when all of the white women were running to rural areas to traditional black midwives because they were being tortured in the hospital. Now, people just wander in there willingly and turn their birth over to the medical system. So, does a woman need an IV to labor? Or does this interfere with the comfort and freedom to move in labor? Remember, the mother's comfort and the sacredness of birth is not a concern of the medical system. They are looking for something to treat. They are looking for a problem. They are looking for a quote unquote medical condition. So, is being spread eagle in front of strangers on your back with machines beeping and bright lights in an unfriendly environment best for mama and baby? They literally have their hands inside of her vagina, pulling and stretching. That is painful and completely unnecessary and a complete violation. Women never birthed like this into the 1900s. So, how long are we going to continue to allow them to medicalize birth? With medical interventions and major surgery becoming the norm in birth, experiences like this picture above is becoming common. Mothers cannot interact properly with their babies or properly bond after being drugged and having major surgery. And this has a long lasting effect on the mother child relationship. Then they go, oh, postpartum depression is so high because women are being violated and they're not able to naturally bond and do the things that are good for that relationship. And they're feeling lost and they're feeling confused and they're hurt and they're angry and they're having all these emotions about their birth while at the same time trying to enjoy this new baby and this new role as a mother. It's the system that is fucking it up. And even in best case scenario, look how invasive it is. They're still strangers poking and prodding and interrupting the natural bonding process because now they are taking measurements and trying to still force other interventions on you, whether it be vaccinations, whether it be Pitocin after, whether it be vitamin K, squeezing ointment in the baby's eyes. All of this interferes with the natural bonding process because it's a hospital and they are still pushing drugs and they are still selling things. This one may sting a little bit, but putting blackface on the medical system is not the solution. It is still damaging to the mind, body, spirit, and the birth experience. It still leads to the same results. Black OBs and nurses are still trained to medicalize birth. They know nothing of or do not respect the natural birth process. If we want to attack maternal mortality, then we must be honest about the causes and take an active approach to preparing mothers for birth and honoring the natural birth process and the sacredness of birth. It doesn't matter if it's a black OB, a green OB, a Asian OB, a white, it doesn't matter. They're medicalizing birth. That's what you have to understand. It is not the person, it is the system. But if people continue to fall for this, oh, we need more black this, we need more black that in a system that never respects birth, you will continue to get the same results because there are more black doctors, more black nurses and OBs than there has been. Yet, the medical or the maternal death rate is still increasing. Creating our own narrative. It is time that we create our own narrative around birth. Look at the serenity and peace in this photo. You can sense the love and comfort. Mama feels safe and supported and laboring as she leads herself. She can trust her body, and no one is pretending to be the authority over her body. This is what birth can look like for women, leading to mamas trusting their bodies and their natural instincts, which carries into her trusting her natural mothering instinct. Birth is a sacred time for the entire family. It is to be honored and respected without thought of licenses, profit, or jobs. The best experiences are centered around the family and what is best for their bonding and adjusting to their new reality. They need to be allowed to share in the love of the experience in peace, not have to protect themselves from unnecessary interventions and medical norms, fear based interactions, and threats. Because that's what's happening in the hospitals. Even best case scenario, as soon as you have your baby, you need to get a shot. You need to get this. What did your baby? I've seen nurses and midwives in the hospital tell a woman who just had her baby that why wouldn't you want to get a vitamin K shot? You're putting your baby at risk. If she dies, that's on you. Fear. As soon as a mother is holding her new baby, completely in love, and they're trying to scare them into something. Now, look at the peace and joy in this picture. That is what every mother and every family deserves. Siblings being present to facilitate their transition into their new roles as big brothers and big sisters is great. When they can be a part of the birthing process, they are more likely to feel connected to their new siblings. Not to mention, understanding birth as a natural process makes them more likely to encourage natural birth for their own family and children to come. I've heard everybody's probably heard stories of like when the mom just came home with a baby and the child has this time where they're trying to adjust or they don't want the baby. Now that's not the same thing when a child is allowed to be there to experience the process, to actually be a part of it. Now they feel connected and responsible for this being. They literally seen them come into the world. They are a part of the welcoming committee. This is something that goes beyond just having a baby. And when we don't respect the entire process, there are consequences and repercussions that they don't even talk about or acknowledge. They're just like, oh, you had a healthy baby, you're good. No, this is so much more. This is a spiritual experience. This is a birth in a bed at home, free to follow natural instincts, taking it all in, meeting your baby outside of the body for the first time, allowing the body to work as nature designed, breastfeeding your baby as soon as possible, developing your natural mothering instinct without strangers there in a place full of love. This is birth. This is birth the warrior way. So I developed the warrior way to allow moms to learn how to protect their birth, to train for birth and be ready no matter where they're birthing to have the sacred experience that they want. So, the warrior way to birth is a birth philosophy for the mind, body, and spirit. By honoring birth as a holistic experience, mamas are able to prepare for the complete experience of labor and birth and develop their innate abilities to mother. Pregnancy and birth are preparation for motherhood, and a holistic understanding assists mom to adjust to their new roles on every level. First, we reprogram the mind. The mainstream narrative around birth is detrimental to the natural birth process. The mind must be reprogrammed to perceive birth as a spiritual experience the body is capable of performing. Releasing fear is a big part of this programming. The ability to calm and control the mind in birth is a big factor in the experience. So, next, we focus on preparing the body. This is the second component of the warrior way to birth. The body works hard in pregnancy and birth, and postpartum recovery is dependent on how healthy and strong the body is going into birth. When the body is properly prepared inside and out, mama's confidence in birth is higher and is easier to release any fear that may arise during birth. And last, clearing the spirit is vital because birth is a spiritual experience. And when the mind and body are prepared, spiritual blocks can still cause issues in birthing. Pregnancy and birth will bring up any unresolved trauma and fears. Mamas must face anything that comes up and embrace the spiritual journey of pregnancy and birth because it continues into motherhood. And what is not faced in pregnancy will be projected on the child in motherhood. How mamas experience pregnancy and labor extends beyond birth. The spiritual aspect is often overlooked, but the warrior way assists mamas on their spiritual journey. The warrior way to birth is for everyone. Fathers, mothers, grandparents, friends, sisters, brothers, practicing and aspiring doulas, medical staff, and anyone who wants to learn more about supporting natural birth. There are three levels to this training: birth workers who wish to facilitate the pregnancy and birth as the main support person in any setting, mamas who want to prepare their minds, bodies, and spirits to optimize their pregnancy and birth experiences, along with how to prepare for postpartum, and friends and families who want to be the best support they can be by learning about the birth process, tips and pitfalls of helping support moms in pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. Every family, group of friends should have a doula or someone who is trained to understand pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. It is up to us to protect women in birth. This is the solution for the maternal mortality rate. Education, community, people to protect mother in birth. We have to know what is truly best, what natural birth looks like in order to bring the maternal mortality rate down. It is not going to happen through medical intervention, through medical professionals, and through medical training. With the emergency state of maternal mortality, especially in the Black community, the goal is to train 8 mamas, 8 family and friends and support, and 8 birth workers in the warrior way to birth in 2022. All those who participate will know how to protect and prepare for birth. Education and preparation are the best protection. Visit ajayadivine.com to support and or register for the Warrior Way to Birth training. Share this video because there is no one birth and the maternal mortality rate does not touch. Peace and love, and thank you. Disclaimer: I am not a medical professional, nor would I ever want to be. This is not medical advice. This video is for private use only. Please consult whoever it is that is the authority over your body when you want to decide what to do with it and how to birth your baby. Thank you. Peace and love.